finally, a source of raw, real, and honest information on healthcare issues that matter most. Welcome to BS Free MD. From the latest medical information to how to stay sane as a doctor or a patient, no subject is taboo, no BS is allowed. Now, let's welcome your hosts, Doctors May and Tim Hindmarsh.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of BS Free MD. We're super excited you could be here this week, and we are happy to announce the beginning of a little series we're going to do on the physician as patient. We did a little fun episode on this in our last Doc Tales with Cocktails, talking about our personal experiences as patients and some of the goofy stuff we've done. But now we're taking a serious look at some of our colleagues out there in medicine and what they've been through, whether it's chronic illness, a life-threatening illness, and how it's actually impacted and changed them. So this week we are super excited to have with us as our guest Dr. Manisha Rayavarapu. She is a family medicine physician, author, and lupus advocate. She has lived with lupus for 10 years and is dedicated to raising awareness by sharing her story. She actually has written a book called Butterflies, Boards, and Blessings, A Doctor's Journey to Thriving with Lupus. And I connected with her, and we're happy to have her here with us this week, share her story about what that has been like. But first, before we get into the interview, we want to be reminding you of why we're here this week is because we have our sponsor, Physician Financial Services, to thank. So without further ado, here's a message from them letting you know that they are a business widely recognized in the physician community for disability insurance. Lawrence B. Keller, who's a CFP, has been in the insurance and financial services industry since 1990. And unlike medicine, which has a standardized path that physicians must take to gain education, training, experience requirements necessary to get board certification, the insurance and financial services industry does not. And so while he might not be a doctor's first phone call regarding their insurance needs, he's often their last. So we want you to find Larry at drpodcastnetwork.com/Larry Keller or at the link in the description of this show. I will, as always, link this in the show notes, and you can reach out there. We hope you never need to use your disability insurance, but it's one of those things that you definitely want to have when you need it. All right, Tim, let's get into our interview today. Please, everyone, we're super excited to share this story from Dr. Rayavarapu, and I've had the pleasure of reading your book, Butterflies, Boards, and Blessings. So welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, we're excited. So why don't you share with the audience a little bit about yourself and your background?
Okay, cool. My name is Manisha. I am Dr. Manisha Rayavarapu. I'm a family medicine physician, lupus warrior and advocate, and the author of the book, Butterflies, Boards, and Blessings, A Doctor's Journey to Thriving with Lupus. I was diagnosed with lupus in 2010 during my second year of residency, and so I've been living with lupus for 11 years now.
Was that a long process to get to that diagnosis? I know some of these rheumatoid diseases it seems, like they're really obvious when you get the answer, but getting to the answer, getting to yes, as they say in other parts of the world, can be difficult. Was this something that you were suffering with and kind of, writing off your symptoms as, I'm tired, I'm a resident, or this or that, before you're like, this isn't right, and I need to get this, checked out?
So if we really think about it, I actually had symptoms since I was really young. Like since I was a child, I have been getting rashes on my body, on my face. And we just, said it's just sun. It's just, I lived in Florida. So I was getting rashes since I was young, and I would occasionally get joint pains, muscle aches, but I did work out quite a bit. And I also would lose hair, but you don't think much about it. I had long, thick hair, so losing a few strands of hair wasn't a big deal. It's just I would shed like a dog. And then I would get fatigued, but everyone does. Those symptoms got more prominent during residency, but I kind of just chalked it all up to, hey, I'm a resident. I'm working like 80 hours a week. I'm just running up and down stairs because the elevators did not work. At the hospital I was at, I was overworked, I was overstressed, and studying for exams, doing PowerPoint presentations, just trying to balance all of that. I just thought I was overworked and overstressed. I'm thankful though that when I did actually get to a doctor, they were quick to figure out what was going on. So that I consider myself quite lucky, in that my doctors were. My primary doctor was very quick to pick up that there was something more going on, and then did some proper testing for me before sending me to a rheumatologist. So I did get lucky.
I think that's crazy. So I'm obviously, yes, going through residency, we all know is just like it's like physical body changing as well as the emotional part of it. I'm thinking back to, when we were in residency, or actually med school, I think a lot of us were diagnosing ourselves. I don't know how it is. It's like, oh, I think I have MS because I have this symptom. Oh, I must have like ALS. Oh, I must have Sjogren's because my lips are dry. Oh, I must have. Did that ever come cross your mind in med school or even residency? Did you start to kind of wonder or start trying to, did you ever do that? I mean, not everybody does it, but I know that it seems to be a common theme.
I know a lot of people do that, and I never really did that. Little things, like for little things, I'd be like, or jokingly, I'd say it, but never did I actually think that anything could be wrong with me. Like during medical school, when I read about all of this stuff, I would think, oh man, that's horrible. I feel really bad for the people who have that, never thinking in my mind that that could be me.
Wow.
So what was the tipping point?
Yeah, what was the tipping point?
Was it like just a routine physical exam or something, and you shared these symptoms and they're like, hey, something else is going on? Or were you like, something is going on, this is not right?
Well, I had just gone on a trip to California with my now husband, and I had started having a lot of joint pain. I had been having it throughout that year, but it was really getting worse on this trip. And when we came back, I ended up staying at his place because he lived near the hospital, and our flight got in late from California. So the next morning I woke up, my face was completely swollen. It was just puffy. And I was like, okay, this is just an allergic reaction. That's fine. I'll take some Benadryl. I'll go to work. It'll be cool. And I did that. It was not cool. The next morning, when I say my eyes were like little slits, I could not see out of them. And I was like, well, something's wrong. I gotta, go get on some steroids or something. Something's wrong. And that's when I went to see the doctor, because I couldn't see. And because honestly, it wasn't just that. I hate to admit it, but I'm a little bit vain.
I'm thinking if it was me, I'd be like, hello, this doesn't look cool. Like, no, not just you. I think most people would be like, this is like, I can't go out like this. Something's wrong too.
I was a little bit vain. I was like, I can't look like this. And so that kind of was a driving factor to get me to the doctor.
So, and that was, you said the beginning of your second year of residency?
That was the end of the second year of residency.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So then you still had a year to go, and you had a new diagnosis, and, it's rheumatology, so there is a stepwise, progression in treatment. It isn't like you just take one medication and you're all better. So how did that work out as far as, transitioning from your second to third year and then into practice as far as, beginning treatment? What did that look like?
Second year, end of second, so the beginning of third year and all through third year was supposed to be a lighter year for us. It was less of the hospital work and more of the clinic work, so and more electives. So thankfully it was a lighter schedule. I could spend my time in the clinic, where it was a little bit more flexible if I needed to leave for doctor's appointments or if I was not feeling really good. I actually don't think I took that many days off, to be honest with you. I may have had to leave a few times early. And I did have some major events that scared the hell out of me. I remember one time I started just getting like migraine auras. But at the time, I didn't realize that those were migraine auras because I wasn't getting a migraine. I just had the auras. And I thought, oh my goodness, I'm losing my eyesight. So it was very scary throughout the entire first year.
No kidding. I mean, as a doctor, symptoms, but when it's happening to you, I'm gonna just assume that. I mean, I know what I've gone through, but it's totally frightening because it's the unexpected, and it's like, is this part of it? Is this something else? Am I right? Kind of going down the right path. I mean, yeah, you're getting all these things, and it's like, is it really part of the, what's going to happen? Because best and worst case scenarios as well.
So it was just a very scary, confusing time.
Right.
Thankfully, it was an easier year, but there were just so many ups and downs, so many changes in medications, just so many symptoms changing. It was, prednisone, let me tell you, it is a lifesaver, but it is also a nightmare. The side effects just, I would have extreme insomnia at night. I'd be up all night. I'd be, I did get agitated. I'd be very snappy. I'd be very anxious. And I was always hungry. It was just, it took away the pain, but it just made me into a totally different person.
Yeah, I had to take I took a Medrol dose pack once for a nerve injury I had, and I was driving on the freeway with my kids, and I said, "You're gonna have to excuse me because I'm on bastard pills."
Yeah.
In traffic, everyone needed to be run off the road. It was quite dramatic.
Yeah, people respond differently to it for sure. So I'm on prednisone, and actually I like it. It's like I don't get when I'm on lower doses, it's like a miracle thing for me. On higher doses, I don't have a lot of horrible things, thankfully, but patience, it totally varies. And so, yes, it's the double-edged sword, that medication. So why don't you share with us what was it like? You said that you were functioning pretty well, but did you have any trying times where you really felt like, I don't know if I have the support of my preceptors, colleagues at work, even when you started out into practice? Was there any points where you really struggled with support or any big obstacles?
In the beginning, when I was first diagnosed, I really thought I would be met with empathy and support, and I actually was not. I had several of my colleagues who, I had considered close friends even, who were like, you need to take a medical leave of absence. You're going to be a liability. What are we going to do about the call schedule and coverage and this and that? And at that time, yes, I was hurting. I was literally popping a leave, twice a day, and then Tylenol in between, anything to deal with the pain, because I was having a lot of pain and I was having a lot of fatigue. I'd go home and I'd just totally crash. But I was functioning through work, but they felt that I would be an issue, and they really tried to push for me to have to take this leave of absence. And I said, no, if I take this leave of absence, I don't think I'll ever come back and finish. And I'm just going to sit here feeling depressed. I can't do this. This is not going to work for me. And I said, I would rather deal with the pain. I would rather deal with the struggle. I would just rather deal with it and finish this out. So I just, I'm not saying everyone didn't support me, but there was a good enough amount of people who didn't, and that was really shocking. to me, because these were my colleagues.
Well, it is surprising. I mean, it reminds me of an anecdote in our marriage where our daughter had just been born, and we had, I think it was the first time she was with a babysitter, and we went to see Titanic, which was, of course, exactly what you see with a newborn, right? And so, by the end of the movies, May's like, I would never leave in a lifeboat. I'd rather die with you on a plank in the ocean and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, yeah, we would just die together rather than put one of us in the lifeboat. And then about a week later, we're in the Columbia Gorge on a jet ski, and the water is quite warm. It's about 75 degrees, believe it or not, in August in the river. But then there's these tributaries where the water is shaded and it's cold. It's in the 50s. And of course, we're going really slow, and it's a jet ski, and if it's not moving, it's essentially a weeble, and it knocked us off. And we're both instantly, it's 90 degrees outside. We're both instantly in 50-degree water, and we're clawing over top of each other to get back on the jet ski.
It was like a true test of.
Yeah, and I said, yeah.
Would you save your partner, your true love? No, it was like survival of the fittest.
No,
you're going to die as I climb over you to save.
Right. I mean, that's literally what it was like. And I was just like, yeah, okay, so much for the plank in the, North Atlantic. Like, that's going to happen.
Oh, my God.
I'm going to be the one putting the ice cubes from the iceberg in my scotch, and you're going to be the one that's getting, first in line with the Astor family, right?
Well, if you were our little children, I'd throw them on first, but not you, I guess. Anyway.
So it is interesting, it sort of begs the point where it is interesting. You kind of find out in these trials of life, you find out really who your friends are. And I find that stuff is really surprising at both ends of the scale. The people that you really thought you expected would support you, some of those people aren't there. But then there's other people that are just very almost random. And they can be some of the most supportive people in the world. Some of this, we've been going through, my mother just passed away and about 10 days ago, and we just lost our family dog, and it just like all happens at the same time. And it's really amazing. Most of the people you would expect, they do something nice, they send you a card or whatever, but then there's this kind of random acts of kindness that are just incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Looking back on that time, how about through the eyes, you as the eyes of the patient going through this, was there any kind of point where you struggled, say, with insurance companies or medications or, prior authorizations or physicians not understanding? Did you have any of those kind of moments, aha moments, like, oh my gosh, this is what patients go through, and I'm, now I get it because I'm the patient, and this is really annoying kind of time, or has it been kind of smooth sailing for you?
No, definitely not smooth sailing. No. I struggled a lot with when I started taking Benlysta, which is the infusion medication. Getting that medication approved and shipped, it was just a huge headache. I'd constantly being on the phone. At first I was going to have to pay full price for this drug, which was like, I don't know, $3,000 or $4,000 a month for this medication. And then, luckily I found a copay program that helped out. But then, just scheduling the appointment for it, scheduling the shipment, all of it was such a headache. And it's like, I'm tired. Like, I don't have the energy to be on the phone nonstop. And I'm working. I don't have time for this. So, I did struggle a lot with getting my medications. Most of my doctors were pretty good with me, but I think that part of that is the privilege of also being a physician.
Did you feel that just because you as a physician sort of knew a little bit of, not the ins, but sort of how to navigate the system, and that was a positive for you? I mean, yes, obviously, because patients that don't understand how things work or who to reach out to or who to sort of not pressure, but are totally at odds. So I was just wondering if that ever crossed your mind, and like, oh my gosh, how do patients with no medical training even do this?
That's exactly what I thought. That's exactly what I thought. How do they do this? Because at least for me, I had some understanding of the way things work. And I also had resources. I had colleagues who were in different specialties, in different fields, or, my supervisors knew someone who would be able to help. So I had access to a lot more things than just the average patient who comes in. So I feel very blessed in that, but it made me really, really feel for those who don't, and not only, having the resources and the access, having education to understand. There are people who can't even, read, or I've worked in federally qualified health centers. And so where I was working last, it was in an area with a lot of Mexican workers, and they don't even speak the language. So how do these people get help? How do people who never finished high school and have very low education level, how do they even navigate when it's just such a complicated thing that I understand now when patients said, well, doctor, I tried and I gave up, because I understand. I used to be so upset. I was like, well, why did you need this? Will help you. But I understand how hard it is now. It's really, really, really hard. And I do feel lucky that, and I really feel for them. There's so much, to get your forms filled out, and then dealing with being dismissed by doctors is a whole nother thing, not being believed. How many times was I, a physician in residency in the ER, and patients would come in crying for pain meds, and every time they said that, oh, they were allergic to this or they couldn't take this, we were like, oh, drug seeker. No, they're really in pain, and they've tried all of these drugs because they've had them thrown at them 100 times, and they know what works. I think a lot of times we take for granted how much patients really do know their bodies and what works for them. All of this comes, and you learn so much being on the other side of it.
Yeah, those are really good points. Totally the truth, because it's, almost like a jaded side. If you're not a patient as a physician ever, you have this sort of one-sided opinion until you're put on the other side as the patient, no matter what it is, whether it's getting a knee arthroscopy or having a life-threatening illness or a chronic illness. Everything changes, and then I know personally for myself, it's like, I totally get it. And if you don't have the the medical education background, know how to navigate things, my heart goes out to people for sure. So I know this because I read your book, but tell us a little bit about, I know you reached out to some support groups and sort of non-medical things for help. I'm thinking of the support group that you did. Share a little bit just briefly about what that was like. Did you feel like a fish out of water? Did you feel how was that as a physician in a just a generic support group for lupus, and how was that experience?
So I went to a few different ones, and every one I went to, I did not feel like I fit in. Either I was in a group of people who were really, really struggling, and it was more of a, we're just trying to survive mindset, which was not where I was. That was not where I was. I want to live. I want to be doing well. I want to be thriving. So that was really just, as much as I felt a lot of the things they felt, it was not the atmosphere I wanted to be around. And then, I went to some groups of those who really were thriving and doing well, but they were doing a little too well for me that I couldn't keep up with them. I couldn't do what they were doing, in terms of, I couldn't go to their social gatherings or their meetings weekly and do their social activities. And so then I felt kind of left out there. So I really struggled to find my place, because with this disease, there's this huge spectrum of how people are affected. Some people are really struggling. Some people are dealing with kidney damage. Some of us just have the occasional joint pain. Some of us only experience fatigue. There are so many different symptoms. We're affected in such different ways. And I just had a hard time finding my place amongst amongst that.
Yeah, I'm really curious as to that as, medical professionals feeling that exactly what you said. There's two different extremes. The people that are, not, say, maybe on disability, not able to work, and that extreme. Then other people who, on the other side of things. So that whole feeling like you're alone in this and nobody sort of fits the niche that you do. And did you ever feel like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to find anyone that sort of understands it's a professional with this that really gets kind of where I'm at, what I'm trying to work through? Was that an issue, or did you find that elsewhere other than these groups?
I had a hard time finding the type of people that I needed to find, which is actually why I had started a blog at that time to kind of find that community for myself. And I started blogging, and I did find people who were doing different things, who were in that situation where they weren't really symptom free, but they were still living a life and they were still doing well. And that's where I found community. So we could still share things, but it was still a very optimistic, positive vibe, which is what I needed and what I wanted, because I mean, it has to be said that a lot of people just give up because it is depressing, it is hard. Along with chronic illness comes mental illness, and that depression, that anxiety. We can't forget that that's a super huge part and piece of living with a chronic illness. I'm a generally happy person, but when you think about these things, it can really get you down. And I dealt with it in the beginning. I dealt with some major feelings of sadness and depression, a lot of anger, like serious anger and resentment and hate towards people who were normal, and hate to anyone who didn't understand. I just really, and that caused me to pull myself away from people and isolate myself even further. I pushed people away who didn't understand. Now I have the understanding to know that if you don't live it, you're not going to understand it. You're just not. It's not something that you really truly can understand unless you're living it. But I've come to terms with that and understood, as long as you support me and love me and make an effort to understand, that's enough. You don't have to completely understand what I'm going through. You just have to be there for me.
Yeah, I think that is just an absolutely spectacular point, because I think that's the way it is in every relationship. And it's just, I did obstetrics in my family practice for 12 years, and I delivered hundreds of babies before we had a child of our own. And I'm giving all these people advice, and it might be their fifth child. I mean, and then when, our daughter came home and she's in the car seat and she's all bundled up because it's the end of November, and we put her on the couch and we look at her and we go, what do we do with that? I guess she's going to tell us. And it is amazing, though, how just trying to, when people get the sense that you're just trying to understand, it really is enough. And I think in our marriage, it's the same thing. Like, there's parts of myself I don't understand, but may still makes an effort to understand that. And that's when you really feel like somebody that gets you, which I think is critical. And in the doctor-patient relationship, one of my tricks is I'll look at somebody's T-shirt, and if it's a connection I can make because it's about motorcycles or heavy metal or something that I'm into, I can that patient will instantly trust you because they understand that you get them. And then there'll be somebody that comes in with, maybe some political thing that I totally disagree with, and I look at it and I go, okay, well, I can vector this in another direction so that they trust me, because, we're doing urgent care. We don't have that much time with each patient, and it's all about trust and sort of getting each other. And I just love that point. If you try to understand, that's enough. And I think that's really, really true.
Yeah. Hey, I'm going to jump into a little ahead. So, you got through your third year, yay, and finished residency. So tell the listeners and tell us what happened. So then you transitioned into careers, family practice, or how did now being on your own out in the world practicing change, or did it not change, or how have things been for you after your diagnosis and starting treatment and into actually your practice life?
Well, my first year of practice was really hard, my first and second year. And I think mostly it was because I wasn't working in a very good job or an environment. But part of that was because I had to keep my illness tucked away and hidden. And the second I had to kind of, you know, it was if I was sick, I was very scared to take time off for myself. I didn't want them judging me. And so that just kind of having that over me made it really hard. But then when you say that you have an issue, then it makes it even harder, because now it's kind of like, you need this job. They make you feel like that nobody's ever going to love you feeling,
Wow. Yeah.
That you're replaceable. No one's ever going to want you because you have a problem kind of situation. So, eventually I did have a point where I ended up in the hospital for a little bit, and I had to kind of say that there was something more going on. And rather than sympathy, once again, I was greeted with, this is an opportunity to take more advantage of her.
Wow. So you felt like you had to you kept that quiet, hidden to yourself. I mean, you didn't disclose anything, so no one knew what was going on.
Yeah, I just want to. So obviously, don't tell us where you worked, but what kind of jobs were these? Were these corporate medical jobs, like attached to a hospital system or attached to like insurance companies, or were these private practices where you have 4 or 5 other docs that you're joining? I'm really curious because, I mean, we've been through a couple different corporate medicine gigs, and that world has changed dramatically in the last 30 years. I mean, it is a completely different situation than it was when we started in the mid-90s.
It was a federally qualified health center, but it was a multi-specialty group, and it was not physician owned. It was, I guess, businessman owned, and he ran it like a business. Which was not my style at all, and I got a lot of flack for that. It was a big shock because it was not what I thought practicing medicine was going to be like. I knew that we couldn't take all the time in the world with a patient. I knew that much, but I did not expect it was going to be like this, that it was going to be 15-minute visits, but we're still squeezing in walk-ins, and so you really only have 10 minutes or 5 minutes. And with the new EMR system, that's when they started rolling out the mandatory EMRs. So I went from that transition to paper to EMR, and then I all of a sudden really didn't have any time because I spent so much time documenting on a computer. So that first job was really hard, and I think that's why I was constantly flaring up. It was just emotionally, physically, mentally just very hard. And I ended up leaving after 2 years, and just constantly having flare-ups in the hospital. That's when I had my first episode of pleuritis, and I left after 2 years, and I said, I'm not going back to practice medicine. I'm not doing it. I'm not going back.
At all?
Yes.
So that 2 years was enough. I mean, and I can understand why. I mean, it really, I guess the part of this that really blows my mind is the amount of time it takes to get an MBA versus the amount of time it takes to get, board certified in any specialty is it's almost an order of magnitude. Yet, why don't we own medicine? I mean, we're the ones that have the training, and you can almost get an MBA out of a Cracker Jack box now. But somehow we let these guys control us. And it really is just mind-blowing to me. I mean, it's lawyers don't do that. Lawyers make the laws and practice law. It would be like if we made up the diseases and then treated them. It's just amazing how we don't own our craft. Like that one is just never ceased to amaze me. I don't get it.
I think it's because the business aspect of it is not our craft. It's not what we want to do. We don't want to deal with the headache of the insurance companies. We don't want to deal with all of that. We want to take care of our patients. We want to be with them. That's what we want to do. And the other stuff we don't want to do. And so we've let other people do it for us. And those other people instead of technically working for us and doing these things for us so that we can practice, are actually kind of owning us now, and we're working for them, if that makes sense.
We've totally makes sense. I mean, we've given it away, and we have to own that as a profession, that we've just handed it over, and now the shoe's on the other foot, and they've become our bosses and tell us what to do, and it's sad. I mean, we really have to take it back, but that's
I think the guys that have a hope of taking it back are the like Josh Umber and the Atlas Clinic in Kansas. What is that called? The direct primary care. Because they annihilated the business model. They're like, give me whatever it is, $50 or $70 a month, and I'll take care of you as best as I can as a family doctor, no matter what. And, I mean, that really is patient-centered care. It's wildly less expensive than going through a third party. And the doctors are happy. They're making about the same as they would in a standard model. And the patients are happy because they have virtually unfettered access to their primary care doctor. And the practices are smaller and all the rest of it. So, I mean, the business model is super broken because there's all these fingers in the pie. So if you just change the business model, it can work. The problem is, how do you spread that across the entire country? I don't know. But it's sure inspiring to kind of think about some of that stuff.
Yeah, it definitely is.
So are you completely out of medicine now?
I don't know. I don't really know, honestly.
So right now you're not practicing. Is that right?
Right now I'm not practicing. I did end up going back to work after those 2 years. I did. I did go back to work only because the job was literally 10 minutes away from home. It was 3 days a week, and it was on a mobile unit, which wasn't being mobile at the time. Sandy had hit where we lived, Long Beach, New York. Sandy had really wiped out a lot of the doctor's offices. And so this mobile unit sat there, and I was like, okay, this is fine. I can sit here on this little mobile unit and take care of people for more like, refills of medications, for quick little things. And doing that, I started to not hate medicine anymore. Full disclosure, I never wanted to be a doctor. So that kind of made continuing practicing medicine a lot harder because it was never something I wanted to do. I love caring for patients. I love talking to people and forming those connections, but the medicine of it never was much of an interest to me. I only kept up with it for the sake of caring and providing good care for my patients. But it revived me again. And after that, that job was for a year. It was just a locums job. And then, my next job, I realized, 3 days a week works for me. So I did another job 3 days a week. And then when we moved to Florida, again, I did another 3 days a week job. And that worked, and it made it manageable for me. I only really stopped working because I had a complicated pregnancy. In 2019, I got pregnant with my son. It was a bit complicated. I was on modified bed rest. And then, when I was ready to go back to work, this whole thing with COVID started.
The COVID, yeah.
Okay. And I just didn't feel like it'd be safe. I actually had gotten a job, signed all the papers, gotten credentialed, everything. And then, something in my heart told me, Manisha, don't start this job now. This is not the right time. I really wanted to go back to work. I was tired of being, stuck at home all day with baby. I wanted to be, but, I prayed about it, and it just was the right decision not to go back. And within like a week or two, we found out about COVID, and it was like, this was the right thing to do. I'm protecting my son, who's a small baby, and I'm protecting myself because I'm on these immunosuppressants. It was the right thing to do.
So I was going to say,
I can just say that not practicing medicine during COVID is always the right answer.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, good night. So you've had like one thing rolling out after another, struggling, having issues with fitting in to a system or a practice where you feel like you can be free to work around your illness and that you've got support, or not, or in your case, feeling like totally unsupported, to then, getting pregnant with an autoimmune illness, which is a whole story in itself, to then COVID, to, you've experienced almost every horrific, sort of not horrific, but every obstacle and aspect of this thing, and that's amazing. But what I really like to hear, because you know when you said I don't know that I'll ever practice medicine again, but yet you said it's kind of exciting to hear that there's hope for people that are listening, that there could be support systems or a practice or maybe people out there the right fit that would support someone who's got something like lupus or a chronic illness where you don't feel like you're alone and nothing's going to work. So I heard you saying that, maybe after COVID's done and you feel like things are safe, you might consider going back into medicine. Is that right?
Yes, I think I would go back. I do miss it a little bit, but to be honest with you, I also really enjoy being at home with my son, and me being home fits our lifestyle right now because my husband right now he's a vascular surgeon, so he's working really crazy hours, and is hardly home. So it's a comfort for him to know that at least Mama is home with Micah, so he at least knows, he has parents.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I understand as a mom and the struggles I went through. I always felt like I had a called bipolar illness of work and mom life because I always struggled between career life, May, and home, wanting to be a stay-at-home mom, May, and a nurturer. And I totally understand that. And to be able to just have the freedom and the ability financially and personally and health-wise to do what's really important to you and that works for your family is awesome. It
does work. Yeah. For now, at least it works, and it's better for my health. The pregnancy, I did fine during my pregnancy, but I noticed it did take a toll physically on my body. I am definitely a lot more fatigued than I was before. And then we got COVID in October, and I think.
Oh, and then I'm thinking you have like a baby and a toddler and kids. That is exhausting on anybody. Forget having any kind of autoimmune illness. I mean, kids. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and
we got gray hairs and wrinkles. Just wait. But they're a blessing. But yeah, they're a lot of work, and sleepless nights. I mean, anybody with kids totally gets it. So, high five and clapping to you for that, because that's tough.
I mean, I don't do it alone, though. I do. Yeah. I do have support in my life. I definitely have support.
Tell us about that. Do you have other family that helps out? Backup systems? What do you utilize?
So, my husband, when he is there, he is amazing. He's an amazing father, amazing husband. He has been with me since I was diagnosed. This man stood by me, even though we had only been dating for like literally a month or two. Yeah, 2 months before I was diagnosed. And, he could have walked away at that time and been like, I don't want to deal with this. This is not, I don't want to deal with this. But he stood by me throughout all of this. And he's, he even moved in with me for 4 months after we had started dating, so that he could help me. Which is amazing, and he's been there. He may not understand everything, but he's always been there. So he's been a big, huge support. My parents, they don't understand, and I don't think they ever will, honestly. But they love me, and they care for me, and my sisters. So my family's been there. They're supportive. And now with my son, when I need them to come for a few days to help me, they're there. We also hired a little bit of help to come and help watch my son so I can get stuff done, or have a chance to take a nap in the afternoon and exercise and take care of myself or go to doctor's appointments. So we've hired help. So those are kind of, my physical support systems. And then, I think we've spoken about this before, May, but, I rely a lot on my faith for my strength.
I was just about to, I wanted to for sure touch on that, here and not forget about it. Yeah, I obviously know about it, but to tell our audience like the importance of your faith and how that helped you through some, this life-changing illness.
I don't think I would have been able to get through this without my faith. In the beginning, I'll admit I was angry at God, very angry at God, because I did not think I did anything to deserve this or deserve this punishment. Which is how I saw it at the time. Was this some punishment that God is giving me for I don't know what? But, you know, as I've spent more time with God, as I've spent more time, you know, reading the Bible, I've spent more time in prayer and actually praying, not just praying, you know, God do this for me, God do that for me, be my magic genie. The more I've done that, and the more I've kind of said, you know, God, this is in your hands. I'm letting it go. I'm trusting you. The more I've given up that control and allowed him to take over, the easier my life has gotten. You know, we always have plans for ourselves and we think they're so fabulous. But when we let go, the plans God has for us is even more fabulous. Like, I never thought I would be here being able to have a child, be at home with my child, and publish a book. Like, I just didn't think this was going to be my life. And that's where I am now. And so this is not where I thought I was, but God had other plans for me. And my faith has been huge. It's where I draw my strength from. It's where I draw my comfort from. I'm telling you that my faith, my God is the reason I'm able to do any and all of this. So, yeah, it's a big part of my life.
It's great to hear, and you know, just what you know, the stuff we've gotten in. Just honestly, working through COVID, I've been working almost exclusively in an outpatient respiratory clinic, and so we get all the outpatient COVID patients, and it's so fatiguing. And I'm like, if I didn't have a perspective of something beyond myself, that there was sort of, you know, meaning in even these everyday inconvenient sufferings. I honestly don't know how people do it. I mean, I guess they don't. I mean, that's why we have 70,000 drug overdoses a year.
Yeah.
You know, those are, you know, the best description I heard of that kind of stuff, as far as especially with, you know, COVID, is, you know, diseases of despair. And it's because people's, you know, they have a heart problem that is not, you know, going to be fixed by a cardiologist.
Yeah. No.
I mean, and I know just from my point of view too, I don't know how people, exactly like you said, make it through without some kind of faith support system, some type of belief structure, because yeah, it would, I mean, you just be bitter and angry, and I mean, plus to just be able to draw physical and emotional strength when you feel alone, when you have nothing else. I mean, it's unless you have it, it's really hard to describe to people. But that, I think, I mean, I know that it's a huge part of getting through any kind of struggle, but let alone a chronic illness or anything huge like that. So thanks for sharing that, because that's really huge. Now, I want to get to your book here before we get to the end. So tell us about your book. I loved it. It was awesome. It was inspiring. It was, you know, it just covered everything. Tell us what inspired you to put that out there and be vulnerable and share.
I was really scared for a long time to do this. I'd always wanted to, but I didn't want people to know. Which is why I had started blogging anonymously under the patient doc.
No way.
Yeah, I blogged under the patient doc, and that's what my website is, because I had been anonymous. But when I came to this point that I had time to publish this book, I realized I cannot hide. I cannot be anonymous. I have to own my story, and so. It was a dream for me always to write a book and to publish a book. And I also really felt there was a need to share my story. There was a need to share a message that there is hope, that those of us who are struggling with a chronic illness, that are struggling with, you know, anything in our life, we can overcome and we can still live successful, fulfilling, happy lives. May not be the life that you thought it was going to be, but you can still have a really happy life, and that you can overcome anything through faith, especially, and through strength, through resilience. So I really wanted to share and get that message out there, because I know so many people are struggling and they feel that despair. They really feel that despair. And to see someone else do that, but to be honest, brutally honest about, it wasn't easy. I did struggle. I had a hard time, but I was able to do it. I was able to become a doctor. I was able to find someone who would love me, because that's another thing we struggle with, is finding someone. We settle, or we just give up. But I was able to find someone who truly would understand me and love me. And I was able to have a baby. I was able to do things that I had set out to do. I wanted to share that message of hope. And I also really, really, really wanted people outside of our community to understand what life was like. It's very hard. We struggle to explain what we're going through, what we're feeling. And I really wanted people to be able to pick up this book, read it, and be like, oh, that's what my aunt or my sister or my husband or my wife or my whoever in my life, my coworker, that's what they are going through. That's what it's like. And by doing that, they'll have more understanding. They'll know how to help us more. They'll know how to be there for us more. And it will overall just inform and educate and raise awareness for chronic illness and for lupus and for other diseases.
Right. And the name of the book is Butterflies, Boards, and Blessings, which is a spectacular name. I need to read it because I don't understand what the butterflies are about.
Oh, you come on. Put your doctor hat on. Think about it. Lupus, butterfly.
Butterfly rash.
Yeah,
butterfly rash.
There
yes.
you go.
It's our symbol, the butterfly.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Yeah.
So the butterfly rash.
This book, I mean, obviously we connected, through Facebook, and you were reaching out and asking about your book. But for me, and I know not just me, but other physicians who have had chronic illness or acute illness or gone through any life-changing illness, I mean, it's so inspiring to see this. So I'm not a patient with lupus, but this book inspires me as a physician because of my illness and wanting to share with other people who are patients, professionals, but even doctors, what it's like. Your book, I love it because it touches on, it's for people with lupus. It's for physicians with chronic illness to go, wow, she's got faith and hope, and she made it through this difficult time. It's inspiring to all different groups of people on so many levels, people who need to share their stories. That's the other thing is we as doctors need to share our stories with each other to encourage each other and lift each other up and not live in isolation in a bubble. And we need to share with our patients so that they see us as humans too, not just these figures in the office that, I'd come to work sometimes and be coughing and have a mask, and people would be like, oh, you're sick? I thought doctors never get sick. And I'm just like, good night.
Right. And just like, Kim Jong-un, we never poop.
Yeah, that's right. But on so many levels, this book touches on those things. And so I really thank you for doing that and being vulnerable and putting that out there, because it really is going to, for those people that I really want to read it, it's going to inspire them on so many levels. So, and was there any point where you put this out there that you, I don't know, had regrets or a high five moment, or how are you feeling about once you put yourself out there for the world to see?
I was a bit nervous. Yeah, I was definitely nervous for my family to read it, to know everything that happened in my life. There's a lot they don't know, and this book will basically tell them it all. Because I talk about my childhood, I talk about everything in my life, and so I definitely was a bit nervous, but it was overwhelmed with pride more. I was really proud of myself for this. I did it despite the struggles I faced while writing it. There were a lot of times that I was like, maybe I shouldn't be that honest with this part. Maybe I shouldn't be as vulnerable with this. There were things that I just felt like I don't want to put that in there because it's too personal, it's too deep. But I realized it's that personal and that's that deep that they need to hear. It's that realness, that authenticness. They need the authenticity. It needs to be there. So yeah, I felt nervous. I was scared, but at the end of the day, I was really proud of myself and I was really happy. And you know, now that the book is out and I've gotten some feedback, it makes me really, really feel good about what I did. I've had people, you know, come and say, you know, it's been really inspiring to them. They totally relate to the story. It gives them hope. I've met quite a few doctors and other healthcare, you know, professionals who have autoimmune diseases, and they're like, wow, you know, and it encourages them. They're like, you know, I should write my story too. I should share my book. And that makes me really happy because we should share our stories because you don't know who it's going to help. It's going to help someone. And
Absolutely.
And I've had like the young residents and medical students who are like, oh, I just got diagnosed. I don't know what's going to happen. And this gives them a little hope. This gives them the hope that yes, they can still complete residency. They can do it. And wherever I can bring hope, I want to bring the hope.
Well, you totally did that in this book, and just sharing that in the interview today. There's a few quotes from your book that I love, like this part where you said the most important lesson you've learned in the journey is to find your new normal and focus on what it is that you can do instead of what you can't do. And I think that's a lesson just in life in general for people, no matter whether they have a chronic illness or not. So you're definitely an example of that. Now, the other beautiful quote that I love is from Charles Swindoll, and this just applies to everybody in life, which is life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react to it. And I love that, and I might steal that as my favorite quote too, because really is, no matter what we're struggling through, no matter what life brings us, whether it's illness, any kind of obstacles in life, it is really how we react to it as people. And that's exactly what you imparted in this book. So thank you so much for that. So much. Anything else you'd like to share with us that we didn't talk about today?
No, I think we really had a good conversation going today. We talked about a lot of really good things, and I want to let listeners know that I am always open for community. I love talking to people. I love sharing my story. I love connecting. And so if anybody ever wants to message me or DM me or email me or whatever, I love to meet people who are in this journey together. We are all together, and I love to make new friends and meet new people and hear about, you know, what they're doing. And
perfect.
You know.
I'll put the links in the show notes, but really quick, why don't you share the best place for them to reach you at?
They can reach me on my website, www.thepatientdoc.com. I have my email there, which is mail@thepatientdoc.com, or you can DM me on Instagram at Manisha Rayavarapu, and Facebook is also Manisha Rayavarapu. Fairly
Awesome.
easy if you can figure out how to spell my last name.
There you go. And where would everybody get this awesome book?
It is widely available, but the majority of it is people get it from Amazon. It's available as a Kindle ebook as well as a paperback book.
Perfect. Well, I can see another book in your future because we all want to hear about what it was like going through pregnancy and how life is now, and so much more to share. So we wish you all the best. Thank you so much for being with us here today and sharing with everyone. It's been wonderful to have you, and I'm going to link the contact information, book information for everyone as well. And we wish you all the best in the future, and can't wait to talk to you soon in the future.
Yeah, yes. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me and letting me share my story. And it was just really nice. A pleasure talking to you both. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Take care.
Take care.
Wow, that was actually a great interview with Dr. Manisha Rayavarapu. Super inspiring. So happy to have her as our guest. And like I said, I'll share her connection links at the end of the show notes that you can read. Please reach out to her. She's very open and welcoming as far as sharing her story and being there. She's a great advocate for lupus. Also, I want to remind you of our sponsor, which is Physician Wealth Services. Please reach out to Larry Keller if you need to for any of your disability insurance needs. He's been around for a while in many physician communities, helping them with the coverage they need. He's been a great sponsor of ours multiple times, and we just know that you'll be happy if you work with him. He's great. Reach out to Larry at drpodcastnetwork.com/Larry Keller. That's drpodcastnetwork.com/Larry Keller with the K. All right. And I just want to remind everybody also that we so appreciate you being here. If you're still listening, we know you're a super fan, and we would love it if you could just spread the word. Please share our podcast with just one other person and introduce them to some of the things that we're talking about. It would mean the world to us if you could just even give us a like or rate us on whatever podcast app you're using. That would also be helpful. And as always, reach out to us anytime at bsfreemd.com or follow us on our socials. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear your ideas. And as always, stay tuned for the disclaimers at the end that keep us protected and remind you of the things that we can and can't do. All right. See you next week. Have a great one.
It's no secret that medicine is a bit, uptight. That's why Tim and I created BS Free MD, to mix things up a little and have fun in the process. Besides, we are having these exact same discussions all the time, so we thought we might as well invite everyone to the party. If you really like us, you can get plenty more, and maybe see one of Tim's cool tattoos on our Instagram or Facebook pages at BS Free MD. See you next time.
But we try to keep BS Free MD as raw and real as possible. We can't be held responsible for any medical decisions or discussions had as a result of what you've heard on the show. We know, bummer. But the truth is, we really do care about your questions. So feel free to reach out to us by email at doc@bsfreemd.com.